Hi folks, welcome to Tremendous Tuesday, another lockdown. I've got Stuart Lockhead with me today.
Hello there.
Jimmy Hutton and Donald Trump, who sneaked into the country when Nicola wasn't looking. Phil, take that mask off.
Wow, that feels so much better.
For you maybe, I'm not sure which looks worse, you or him.
Aye, the switch from orange to red's confused the cameras, mate.
Which kind of neatly allows us to segue into today's coronavirus briefing, where Nicola was asked if she'd let Donald Trump into the country and should Celtic be barred from ever returning.
Yeah, they could stay in Dubai, couldn't they, if they're that keen to get there and they want to be that privileged?
So what are you thinking, Jimmy? What would be a suitable punishment for swanning off to the sun for a bit of footy?
The suitable punishment, mate, the way they've been playing this season, make them play other games. That's a suitable punishment.
Ooh.
Well, I don't have an axe to grind apart from the fact that I support Hibs, so I think they should be docked 10 points.
So how many games is there to go, Jimmy?
About 16, mate.
So you're really looking for it to be 48 points then?
I tell you what, it's not going to go down well apart with anybody apart from Celtic fans. I mean, they're privileged enough as it is, footballers. I mean, they're paid a fortune, and now they're sitting in the sun, and the rest of us are all locked up.
They were training.
No, they're not. According to the First Minister, she said that apparently they've admitted that they're there for R&R.
What? The trip was sanctioned months ago. People knew that they were going. The SPFL moved the game. For people to now complain about it is rank hypocrisy.
Well,
You should have complained about it when they moved the Hibs game weeks ago.
So they actually moved a fixture to let them go?
Yeah, they moved the Hibs game, and they also moved the Hibs game after Hibs said, no, we don't want the game moved. The league moved it to the Monday night regardless and didn't bother telling Hibs. It actually came out in the press. My problem with it is that Celtic, through their own fault, i.e. players breaking coronavirus rules, have 3 games in hand. What they really should be doing, rather than swanning about in Dubai, is getting a couple of their games in hand out of the way this week so that we don't have massive fixture congestion at the end of the season. But that's far too sensible an option. And let's be honest, the SPFL have only ever got a track record of forcing Rangers to play 4 games in 1 week. They'd never do it to Celtic.
well,
I, of course, directly oppose that, even though I have no interest in football at all. But in the interests of balance, Celtic are wonderful and Rangers aren't.
okay.
Stick to egg chasing, mate. You might ken something about that.
This sort of thing wouldn't happen in rugby, my good man.
Perish the thoughts, Norman.
While you hooligans are smashing up bars, we're smashing them up in high spirits.
No, well, we're smashing up bars. You're smashing up each other.
That's true. At least we shake hands afterwards.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Phil, Donald Trump coming to Scotland.
Well, apart from that, he shouldn't be let in. Or if they do put him in, they should actually do a Julian Assange on him in case there's an extradition request from America. I mean, treat him what he is. Treat him like what he is. I mean, he won't be when he comes over here apparently on 19th, he won't be the president anymore, will he?
I didn't think it's him that's coming. Well, I had a look at the article. I think it's the family bugging out in case the subpoenas start flying. I'd be very surprised. I know what a horrible shit of a man he is, but I'd be very surprised if he chose not to appear at the inauguration of his successor. I think every single member of the Republican Party will be disgusted at that show of disrespect to the traditions of the United States of America.
Well, the Republicans, or the sort of big bears in the Republican Party, are all jumping ship at the moment. They're all totally ignoring him.
Did you notice that it's overnight? You've heard of the Proud Boys?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what day is it? Is it a day this week? This
Wednesday.
Wednesday tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Right. Tomorrow, the Congress meet to approve the election, and Trump supporters are going to turn up in force And apparently the Proud Boys, as we know, have been swanning around armed to the teeth as if they were the CIA. Anyway, they've arrested the leader of the Proud Boys has been arrested. They're obviously taking the threats of a coup seriously.
Do you
I'm
remember?
not surprised, mate, given how well armed some of these Trump supporters are. And let's be honest, America is a particularly controlled country. Their level of GCHQ would put ours to shame. So they'll have been watching these people, all their accounts, they'll have wiretaps on their phones. And if they've been stupid enough to make suggestions of taking positive action in any way on Wednesday, then why not just arrest the leaders firsthand?
Well, you've got to throw in, I mean, the fact that 10 previous Secretary of Defense, 10 of them, including Republicans, have written that amazing letter warning the Trump and his Trump supporters not to consider military action.
Do you know the impression I get with these Proud Boys? Do you remember when the Hells Angels used to do front stage at all the big concerts?
Aye. Mm-hmm.
You know, they were
the Proud Boys are these days.
That's the whiff I get of it.
Just gangsters, mate. That's all they are.
Aye.
Just gangsters.
Oh, but it's
looking for a profit.
The Hells Angels used to run the free Stonehenge festival. You reckon up to 30,000 people used to turn up. Complete anarchy. Nothing. I've never experienced anything quite like it in this world. It was.
And you've been to a few anarchist raves in your time, Stuart.
I don't think gangsters.
Is that an embarrassed wince I saw there? Is that? Sorry, Phil.
I don't think gangsters is the right word. When you look at this type that are all about, no teeth, no health insurance, armed to the teeth, all the rest of it, they're barbarians. They're barbarians.
Well,
that somehow think they're the most sophisticated, most brilliant people, after the English, of course, on the planet. They're just barbarians.
They're the thickest. They're the thickest of the
uneducated.
thick. Yeah, exactly. They're the thickest of the thick. They're the easiest manipulated. They're the idiots who take part in quizzes and answer surveys on Facebook and prove that they're the most easily manipulated. Therefore, they get bombarded with manipulation. It's the same. It's the same with these clowns, anti-vaxxers and that over here, whose only line at the moment is, "Wake up! I'm educated and you're not." You got educated with a couple of YouTube videos for Karen from Michigan, rather than actually paying any attention to anything in school or having any level of education that gives you a right to speak about the things that you think you're talking about.
Okay.
I despair sometimes, mate. I had to listen to somebody that I consider a friend who is non-Caucasian uttering some of the most ridiculous racist nonsense because he's been got at through the internet and through his friends. And I despair sometimes of what the nation, the planet is turning into when people think that being non-Caucasian and racist is somehow okay because you're brown.
Yeah, I think we'll move on to the presser.
Aye, probably a good idea.
What did you think, Stuart?
Ooh, right. The first thing is, there's a great contrast between what the First Minister has done in the way of public utterances about the new lockdown and the behaviour of our Prime Minister. Apparently, the Prime Minister is to hold a press briefing tonight. You know what his press briefings are like. And there will be the Chief Scientific Officer and the Chief Medical Officer there. I forget their names. And there will even be questions from the public, obviously. Now, he went on television last night to announce this lockdown at 8 o'clock. He's delayed and delayed until, and obviously he wasn't capable of answering questions last night because he wasn't briefed enough. So that's why he's had to postpone it till tonight. There's no getting away from it. The First Minister looked tired today, But God, she still stands there and delivers.
Yeah, the big difference is she delivered to Parliament yesterday and to us, if you like, the press today. Phil.
Boris did about, I think I read somewhere, he did 8 minutes, whereas Nicola gave you a detailed in the region of an hour plus.
And we've had 20 minutes.
We know what's happening. People have no idea. I mean, when he says he's not briefed, he's probably not able. They've got a posh accent. They're all like that. They're all as thick as hell. They've got inherited money, a lovely accent, and not a lot going on between the ears apart from what's in it for me. You know, that's why. Whereas Nicola's normal, actually, apart from a Tory government who's anything but normal. You know, human.
Okay. Jimmy?
Yeah, okay. Aye. With my scant respect for the First Minister at the moment, I'd have to point out that after a 20-year career in Parliament on a 6-figure salary for a lot of that 20 years, she's far, far removed from normal, Phil.
Well, I'll throw in a wee tuppence about that. I set off right at the start, not deliberately, but bearing in mind the discussion we had the other day about the number of times Boris has defended himself by referring to the new variant. It's like he's mentioned that. That's his new apology. This is why I've done wrong, basically. Please, sir, it wasn't me, it was the new variant. And I started counting the number of times the First Minister mentioned it today, planning to look for a comparison. But to be honest, that she did start by mentioning it, but by the time I got halfway through, I realised, no, she wasn't using it as an excuse.
She did, I mean, one of the clever things she did politically right at the start was admit that mistakes would and have been made. And it's very difficult to attack somebody who's doing a mea culpa every time she stands up. She does that. Look, with something this big, we're going to make mistakes, which I think has been a bulwark against a lot of the stupid questions. Oh, by the way, talking about stupid questions, did anybody see Miss Maitland getting a slap down from Philippa Whitford last night on Newsnight?
I thought Philippa done a. Actually, it was quite nice. She just slapped her about slightly. She didn't really kick her up and down the street, which I might have done.
Oh, Emily Maitlis.
Well, Emily Maitlis is usually quite smart, but she just asked.
She was on Message last night. That's something I did watch. Yeah, she was quite. Remember, they took her off.
Yeah,
she went off Message, and she's back on, and she was very clearly told the questions she had to ask Philippa, and it was rubbish. It was stage managed crap.
Well, what got me about it is this idea that we should be going around with cattle prods, getting people out of their houses to take tests.
Aye, it was kind of ridiculous, wasn't it?
I mean, how many people are getting tested in England at the moment?
Well,
but when was the last time you heard anyone ask a government minister about it? UK government minister.
Given that she basically repeated Ruth Davidson's questioning to Nicola Sturgeon in Holyrood.
Yeah.
And the question had been asked better and answered more fully. I've no idea what Emily Maitlis was trying to get at there, other than this is the Tory line, please peddle it for us.
Well, I mean, perhaps we should get that clip, because it made Emily Maitlis, before even Philippa Whitford started answering, she made herself a fool.
And then moved immediately on to calling the surgeon a doctor.
Aye.
Which I'm not quite sure if it was pointed or not, but she moved right on to Philippa's expertise and could she please explain. So she got herself off the hook quite well, I thought. But today, the press conference, it was so obvious today that they were just all looking for sticks to beat Sturgeon with. I mean, was there actually a question that gave us information that was useful to us?
But that's the job, mate. We're in an election cycle now. They have to, and frankly, we're in an election cycle that all of their bosses are petrified of, because they desperately need the gap closed on the SNP in any way, shape or form. They can't have the SNP winning that election with a 30-35% gap. That is a disaster for the British state, and the media are an arm of the British state.
Well, can I throw in the... Oh, sorry, Phil.
No, I was just going to say, well, I hope people that believe in independence take that exactly what you said on note and shut up and put the knives away till June, because that can affect us. I mean, fighting, nobody's going to look at a disunited party. Why? Look at Labour in England. They should be way ahead, disunited fighting. The same thing will happen here, and if you lose this, May, and you don't take the majority, then you have absolutely, you don't have a Scooby of getting an independence referendum. You've got to actually stick together. I think they used to call that old-fashioned thing, mind that if you're in a union, unity, and then kick the hell out of each other at the end of it, right?
Yeah, well, that's my position.
I-
Which brings me neatly, actually, to the other point, the Daily Records question. What's his name? Paul Hutchins, is it? Hutchins.
Oh, yeah.
There was a piece in the Record today about we should postpone the election. It didn't actually say until the SNP were less popular. But
Yeah.
there's also a piece in the Times suggesting the same thing. So they're obviously looking for as much time as possible to undermine the SNP in any way they can.
It's quite remarkable, isn't it, that a country like the United States of America, never once was that suggested. They counted 150 million ballots, and they're suggesting that Scotland would be incapable of dealing with an election where around about 2 million ballots will be cast.
Biggest
and the
turnout
numbers in America
ever?
are way worse than what they are here.
Biggest turnout ever in America for this
For
election?
president.
In the middle of a pandemic?
Oh, yeah. Look, there was, I was thinking before we leave this, the question of international approval, recognition, noticing what happens with the May election. I noticed that the independent, what's it, the ISP, what are they called? The Independent Scotland Party?
Oh, aye.
They're promoting a petition. So their publicity was rubbish, and I don't sign petitions. However, the case is quite strong that back to turning the May election into a plebiscite. In other words, making it the wording of the manifesto such that the international community will recognize the democratic deficit that's being done to Scotland.
Yeah, I'd have to say that a party that doesn't even appear within the margin of error has little to no chance of.
Yeah, well, Jimmy, I'm trying. I agree with you. I do agree with you there, Jimmy. I'm not actually referencing what they've done. I'm simply saying it's just another someone else coming up with this angle.
I think it's interesting that I think there will be quite a high level of international interest in this election, particularly given where the polling sits at the moment and how impressed the international press have been around Nicola Sturgeon over the last year or so. I've seen articles in the Dutch press and the Italian press just this week already.
German press and French press as well.
Basically saying Scotland can stand on their own 2 feet at any point in time. So I think we will have plenty of international observers to watch the unionist parties get thoroughly trounced in May.
Looks like Phil might say something. No?
No, I was just thinking as well, one of the main interests they've got is, well, I suppose, particularly Europeans, disgust her, and I suppose some way putting vengeance in the back pocket when they're looking at the Tories. They'll be watching it, watch the Tories and that, and Labour getting cuffed. I mean, when you looked at Starmer, I mean, basically, I just wonder whether he phones up Boris in the morning and asks him what he's going to do. Because if you remember, Starmer was totally against all the of closing the schools, and even though there was about a dozen different organisations representing teachers and health services, but the minute Boris says, we're closing the schools, Starmer went, yeah. I mean, sorry, whose side are you on?
Phil, it's absolutely crazy, mate. I saw a clip this morning of Starmer on the 1st of December, PMQs getting laughed at by Tory MPs when he was telling them that things were going to get shitty over the next few weeks, and that them sitting there smugly thinking that their areas were going to be dropped a tier were just thinking about it clearly and addressing it. That wasn't shared by the Labour Party or Sir Keir Starmer. It was shared by somebody else. He told them what was going to happen. It's happened, and he is making no hay with that prediction, which is just madness. Meanwhile, they get to label him Captain Hindsight. Who's running his PR, for Christ's sake? The Tory party.
Can I give you another thing as well? Right, yesterday, Assange is not getting extradited at the moment. I don't trust it. But that must have upset Starmer, because it was Starmer that put him there.
Yeah, but the reason he's not getting extradited is health, not legal.
Yeah, Craig Murray's not done a full piece yet, but his small piece on it was interesting. His take on the judges,
yeah, I read
the way that she delivered the verdict and what he's thinking, she's thinking. So it'll be interesting to get a look at Craig's piece later, but presumably later today when he produces it. Can I just quickly pull the Bint? I can't remember her name, but Bint's a decent word to describe her, from the Times, who got the last question today at Nicola's Presser.
Oh God, aye.
Bleating on about her 3 children and the possible mental health implications of them having to sit at home for the next few weeks and not be at school. You'll forgive me, doll, but you're the one that pushed them out. You are far more responsible for your children's mental health than Nicola Sturgeon and the Scottish Government. Step up to the plate, doll. They're your bairn.
That, I don't think I would have said it, but that is exactly what popped into my head.
Aye.
Since when did the Scottish Government have parenting responsibilities over your children?
It was an awfully whiny question that she spat out, wasn't it?
Oh God, I could tell before she even asked it. You could tell that she had kids. She had, she had something in the game. Referring to the kind of tabloid journalists in the Presser, Rachel Watson of the Mail, England, we're doing, was it worship in England? I can't remember. There were 2 or 3 of these questions, but they're doing it in England. Why aren't you doing it here?
Yeah, but
I can't remember that one.
There's some strange stuff floating about. But when you
was
look
that
at
the churches?
We had the churches one, but I think actually Rachel Watson they found a 19-year-old man that had been missed out on his vaccination.
Oh yeah,
in Scotland.
That was the question: that can you guarantee every single soul in the whole of Scotland will get a vaccination by 2 o'clock on February?
And I wanted to make a comment because this guy has now been built up. He's made me notice him. The Bauer man, that's commercial radio. Alan Smith. He time after time comes number 1 in Hyena, Hack, a nasty piece of work. He just makes it up. I've actually written a C-U-U-T word beside his name.
So what was his question?
You want to know? Schools and mental health.
All right, another one.
Yeah.
I just I think we are all of the opinion that any vestiges of respect that the Scottish public, the general public, no the political geeks like us, but the general public who watch this. My mother sits and watches this and thinks she's no politically minded really, but she thinks that the media are a disgrace. Any vestige of respect that the media had, there was a sort of, which particularly folk of a certain age, they respect the media and they get their news from the papers every day, and they thought, this is a kind of magical thing that we're getting this news. That's all gone down the shunky, because the way that they have gone for Nicola Sturgeon from the get-go, they've shown themselves up to be nothing more than
hyenas,
pretty petty hacks.
I would put exceptions in. ITV and the BBC tend to look like the cream of the crop, but the crop is poisonous. Sorry, Phil.
No, I was just thinking of flowers growing in a pile of SHI, because that's what they think they are. They think they're so wonderful, But again, going back to the Assange bit there, see, when you said about mental health, and we were talking about mental health, but the one thing you see in the press, the media and all that, they keep going on about is mental health. But the main thing, if you listen to that judge, was she appeared to be horrified that the maximum security prison, that he'd be kept in a cage, a tiny cage, and then he gets put in a slightly bigger cage once a day to walk about, doesn't meet or see anybody.
Yeah.
And he'd be lucky to see the sky.
Barbarian.
It's torture, Phil. It's barbaric torture, but because the Americans do it, we just accept it. If the Russians treated their prisoners in this manner, or the Chinese, or the Indians, or the Pakistanis, we would call it out for what it is: barbaric torture.
You might even
because it's our friends, the Americans, we turn a blind eye.
I don't. Well, I'm not sure that it's a question of friendship. I think they just the Brits have got used to hiding the fact that the Americans are the gangsters of the world. So what and we are the petty sidekicks.
But we were the major gangsters. That's why we sit there and look at America and think we used to be able to do that for hundreds of years.
I think it's because we taught them how to do it.
Yeah.
Basically.
And we certainly assisted them and gave them some of the more questionable techniques. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have come to waterboarding if we hadn't helped them out with it.
I don't know. Do you know, it's nearly 200 years since the Americans actually overtook the UK. Or maybe you could say it. By 1821, the USA was already better educated, had more democracy. I say more democracy. They had the vote out to the male population, but they were well ahead. And then by 1860, they were industrially ahead of the UK. So we've actually been playing second fiddle to the USA for nearly 200 years.
So what happened to the education then, when you have a look at all these toothless thick buggers wandering around with guns? What happened to the education?
Maybe that's what happens when you have an empire.
Democracy. Where's the democracy over there now?
Phil, maybe that's what happens when you run the biggest empire in the world.
Where's the democracy here, Phil?
Well, yeah, I'll just take Stuart's last point of democracy. Yeah, it's going, because we're all empirical. We think we're marvelous and we're going down the tube. So if you want to hang on to it, you've got to get rid of democracy.
I mean, we'll all end up saying liberal democracy has failed before we're finished here today.
Got a point.
Said he, biting his tongue. Okay, let's move on from the presser. Phil. Anything you want to bring up?
I'm just trying to think of something positive and cheerful and all that.
Oh, come on. We've got something for you, haven't we?
Andrea Leadsom isn't Prime Minister.
All right. We've got the LBC piece. Phil will enjoy that, won't you, Phil?
Which one?
James O'Brien on LBC.
We've got a wee clip for you.
That'll get him going. Can you got that?
On the missing...
Oh. Has anybody seen Dido Harding?
Yeah.
No. Where's she? Well, she's probably spending the money. She's probably skiing or something.
Well, this is from LBC. What's his name? God, I've forgotten his name.
James O'Brien.
Oh,
so if you give me a sec, here we go.
We try to do today is both.
Here we go.
We try to do today is both ask and answer questions that are occurring, perhaps, to all of us. And again, it's rather hard to know where to start. But what was Nadeem Zahawi's job? What was he in charge of? He had... No, it's gone. Dido Harding, do you remember her? She was going to deliver a world-beating test and trace system, which, of course, is the only way you can avoid lockdowns, as we see from the South Korean example. Anybody seen Dido Harding? Bit of a white flag gone up over there, I think. And, well, we're on the subject of disappearances. Any sign of the moonshot? Operation Moonshot. In fact, 7 minutes after 10 is the time. Phone lines are open. In fact, I I don't think you can remember what it was. Operation Moonshot was going to fix everything. Can you? I bet you can't even remember what it was.
I can't remember
So
what it
let's
was.
let's have a look at a few of those things. The question of what has happened to the test and trace system. It may be that I'm being grossly unfair and it is actually working rather well. I know people are pinging left, right and centre, but that's the contact tracing element of it, not necessarily the testing element of it. Somebody tests positive, everyone whose phone has come within X meters of their phone then pings and gets instructed either to self-isolate or take a test. What was Operation Moonshot? Where is the test and trace system? These are just some questions. You can ring in with your own, 0345 6060 973. Has anyone seen Dido Harding? Do we need to put out one of those sort of posters or start sticking her photo on milk bottles?
James O'Brien, as usual.
Oh, he's very
Getting the
good.
booting.
Yeah. See, Zahawi, that's his wife.
What's his
and
job?
His 2 kids have just set up, you'll never believe it,
That's right.
a medical supplying company. And she owns 70% of it and all this, you know.
Which started life as something entirely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, he changed the name of the company to blah, blah, blah medical supplies. That's right.
See if he can
What's
get
he in charge of?
His bank
Is he a
account.
minister?
Yes,
He's a minister as a Howie's bank account.
Is he not international business or some crap like that? His real racket is providing. He's the go-between between the likes of Cambridge Analytica or whatever they're calling themselves now, and the Tory party, because he's a pollster. That's where he first came from, wasn't it?
Is that? I thought his ministerial position was going on the news programs and talking as long as he possibly could to avoid questioning.
Yeah, well, it was, but he made a bit of a faux pas, didn't he? Didn't he mess up on one of the programs, and they kind of pulled him at the front line and started sending that idiot George Eustace, because he's absolutely outstanding at talking for 5 minutes and saying nothing.
Do you think they actually get coached? Do they actually get taken into a wee room and told to talk, regardless of what's said?
I believe the television shows like The Thick of It, and they do.
Yeah.
But I imagine them sitting in a chair under a spotlight, having wet sponges thrown at them, trying to distract them. No, you've got to keep talking. Sort of SAS training for politicians.
You would have thought.
I think that's why they got rid of Dominic Cummings, mate. I think Dominic Cummings strapped him to a chair and put electrodes onto their nipples, and they just couldn't cope with that. That was taking it a step too far.
Oh, excellent.
Don't worry, Dominic will be back for revenge.
I'm pretty.
I'm looking forward to that.
His book will be a goodie.
Oh, yes.
Right, who's got something else? Stuart, did you have something up your sleeve?
Marina Hyde, let me bring her up. She has got some wonderful quotes today. Let's just get rid of that one. Oh, okay, I need to do it like that. Press that button. Oh God, they're all coming up now. I'm going wrong here. Stand by.
Well, just a quick one while Stuart's sorting out his technical difficulties. There we go. On you go, Stuart. On you go.
No, you carry on.
I just wanted to reference Margaret Ferrier's charging yesterday. Overtly political, in my opinion. The fact that they charged her, she was arrested and charged about 2 hours after Nicola Sturgeon made her speech to Parliament, and a couple of hours before Boris made his to the country, so that it wouldn't be a story. Why on earth is she being charged 3 months after the fact by Police Scotland, when the Metropolitan Police arguably should have charged her, because the offence that she committed coming back up when she knew she was positive is far more than what she done by going down when she thought she may be.
So
do you agree with Stuart Campbell that Peter Murrell might have engineered that, or that Hamza Yusuf might be trying to get himself back in the good books by putting a bit of stick about a la Francis Urquhart?
When's Gorgeous George going to get arrested then?
Nah, you didn't want to touch him with a barge pole, mate.
He's not in the SNP.
There's no a polis in the country that wants to go near George Galloway, mate.
I only want to confiscate his hat, so we can all shout, "Baldy George!" That's why he wears the hat.
I'd rather pull the brim down and staple it to his face. That would be far more entertaining.
What, Berlin Rand to push him into the traffic? Oh, that'd be a good one.
That would work.
And you two are friends of his, I believe.
I've met him a couple of times, and
I met him years ago. Yeah,
he's as big a fud as he appears on TV. That's for sure.
It's just something different, isn't he?
I'll see. I've got it finally. I changed my medication yesterday. I'm now taking 100.
That's a bit too much detail for us, mate.
I'm taking 6 times of a serious medication for my heart than I was before. So excuse me a moment, but we found it. She's got some lovely things talking about him. Something like, it's not like Boris can't see around corners, that he can't see 2 steps ahead of him. No, that's not terribly exciting. I've got better than that. It's not the Prime Minister's fault. The Prime Minister explained to the nation last night, it's all down to this guy, New Variant, who got repeatedly name-checked throughout his sober speech. And this is the best line, I think. Like a lot of comically weak men, Johnson is presumed to be an alpha male, but other inadequates. Can any of you guys see the alpha male in Boris?
I can see that he thinks he is.
I would, yeah, he's a step down from a sexual predator, is he not?
I thought Arnold Schwarzenegger was your classic alpha male.
No, Arnold's the absolute opposite, mate. That's why he went to the gym for 20 years to build a shell to operate in.
Boris is an alpha simian. It's not, it's an alpha simian.
Doesn't Marina have...
Even when you see pictures with a kid with his family, even his mum used to say, I mean, he was always that, God, why was he born? He should have been throttled at birth.
Doesn't Marina have skin in the game, though? Was she not flinging herself under Boris at some point?
Oh, I don't know about that. She opens up with a fabulous start. She says, another series of breakneck U-turns from the government's world-beating driverless car. As things Boris Johnson said on Sunday turn out not to be true on Monday. And she also says, I'm sure he means them when he says them, like wedding vows, or the sort of nonsense one might insist if you wrote a newspaper column.
I always think Johnson missed his true calling. He should have been a double glazing salesman. He'd have made a fortune. Do you not get that kind of feeling off him that what he's probably best at is just selling stuff that he doesn't believe in?
Yeah, he'd be outstanding at that, mate.
I don't know. Trouble is, he'd sell you double glazing, but the people would arrive with a front door instead. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Turn up with 2 pork pies and a chocolate cake.
Something like that, yeah.
And like most double glazing that's supposed to go in on the 2nd of March, doesn't arrive till the end of July.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that he's pushing back the time for when people are going to be vaccinated. Matt Hancock had a heart attack when he tried to deal with this 2 million vaccinations a week thing. He just about shat himself on live television.
Did I not see a live post this morning about Matt Hancock's really got himself in the doo-doo today?
He does it all the time, mate. He raised the bar again by saying one of the reasons that nurseries weren't shutting is because they are private and they may go bust.
That's it.
At which point the interviewer, I believe, turned around and said, so you're effectively making public health policy based around private company shareholders' interest.
Yeah. That's the one I was thinking about, yes.
Yeah, but that's normal. That's been going on for decades. It's just
but you're not allowed to say it out loud, Phil.
God.
Even for a horse's arse like Hancock, that is a spectacular foot in the mouth moment.
Well, actually, he'd probably do better if he took his hand off it.
Off what?
It.
It's the name, Hancock. Take his hand off it.
No, it's like austerity is about keeping rich people rich.
Yep.
You're not allowed to say it. Everybody knows it, but you're not allowed to say it out loud.
Because they're all hoping they'll be rich.
That's possibly why Rishi Sunak is such a shoo-in to be the next Prime Minister, mate.
Oh,
unless
no.
unless Priti Patel gets her way, because he's another double glazing salesman, but he has the one thing that Boris doesn't. Shed loads of money, and he's far shinier than Boris will ever be. And the English love their shiny people.
Do you know?
Look at how many of them voted for Tony Blair. He's one of the most shiny, oily bastards the world's ever seen.
But Sunak's the wrong colour for the Brexiteers.
Yeah, I can't see Sunak. No, Essex, these places, the ones that voted Brexit. No, I can't see it.
Yeah, but look at how they're brownwashing the Brexit voter, mate. They've got Priti Patel and Rishi Sunak out there front and centre at all times.
Well, I've been noticing that Mr. Hunt, who our erstwhile Minister of Health, has been pretty prominent in the last few days.
I think he's looking. I
think he's looking for it.
No, but I think he senses revenge, mate. I think he's between him and there's possibly another couple floating about in the background. Our ex-chancellor, for example, the wee short one that looked like an alien, and our snorty ex-chancellor that's the editor of the Evening Standard. I think they can,
Osborne.
Yep, and I think they can sense blood in the water, and they are thinking to themselves, revenge might come in 2021.
Well, when it comes to Johnson, of course, they've got Johnson never wanted the job of handling what he's handling. And somebody said it's a lot easier becoming Prime Minister than being Prime Minister, because when you become Prime Minister, you have to make difficult decisions, and he's incapable of doing that.
He's never really been people say he's not a details man. He's certainly not a man that likes to take decisions, because taking decisions inherently means that you upset some people. And Boris's main driver in life is to be popular.
Aye, well, that's the other. Just about that's a better way of putting it. I was just thinking that he hates to. He just got to be popular. People's got to like him. Oh, don't you like me?
I've got to bring in Phil at this point, being the only supporter of Boris Johnson in the Zoom room.
Well, I was reading and actually agreed with this right winger yesterday, a guy called Max Hastings. I think it was Bloomberg. And boy, did he just ripped, as he's done on numerous times already, Johnson apart. But not only that, he ripped the English apart. It was really quite amazing. They're stuck in the past. They're stuck somewhere warm and moist. This whole thing of superiority. I kept checking to make sure I wasn't reading some left-wing magazine. Max Hastings. It was actually
Max Hastings was his boss at the Telegraph, was he not?
The Telegraph.
Yeah, I was going to say Max Hastings was only a proto-fascist rather than a fascist.
Yeah, he fired him for telling porkies.
Mm-hmm.
Max Hastings fired Boris for making up quotes.
Yes.
Interesting.
He also published Boris for a couple of years before he fired him, though, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, aye.
Yep.
It took him a while to catch him.
Was it? The name will come to me, but the quote was about. It was Heseltine about Boris. This was just 2 years ago, and he says, when you see a parade, a circus parade, he says, well, the clown usually goes up to the front. That's Boris. The Tory party is going to blow itself apart, actually.
Sorry.
The interesting thing will be it doesn't matter, mate, because whether they blow themselves apart or not, and let's be clear, they've been looking like they were going to blow themselves apart for around about the last 3 decades over Europe, but they've been in power for most of that time.
That's what's scary about them.
Yeah, but
they managed to stitch it together to keep power.
It's pretty simple, really. The English in particular, but the British as a species are perfectly happy to tug their forelock and vote for somebody that speaks with a very, very posh accent.
Speaks posh.
I mean, seriously, if Brian Sewell, the art critic, was to lead a political party, he'd win in a bloody landslide.
Stuart.
Well, I was just going to say that unfortunately we've got the second team, and they're just as bad, ready standing in the wings for the Tories collapse.
LIBOR.
Yeah, that lot.
Yeah, well, they should be 20 points ahead. I mean, that's the whole point. If you look at what the Tories are doing now, and, well, I suppose the difference with Keir Starmer is basically agreed with everything that Boris said. So far, not that much different. Competent ministers, young, competent, go ahead, not ministers, MPs, it should be ministers, no, but they stick in all the slack, kowtowers, brown noses, whatever you call them, but you could put them all under right wing.
The collective noun for that lot is politician.
Well, I think the only thing that can be said about British Labour is that the front bench is considerably better qualified to be politicians than Scottish Labour. That may very well be damning them with faint praise, of course.
Anybody got anything for a quickie before we go?
Yes, I think I should finish the show with an exhortation from Peter A. Bell. He, it's one of those short articles today, and he's talking about the May election, and with reference to something that Mike Russell published. We don't need the details, but let me read this out to you. But this should leave us all with something to think about. The conclusion is clear, says Peter. Mike Russell may be correct to say that the people of Scotland can vote for a referendum in the Holyrood election. He declines to add, however, that for them to do so, the SNP must go into the election on a very explicit and quite unambiguous manifesto commitment to a process which will deliver a free and fair referendum at the earliest possible date. He might further have noted that as things stand, the party of which he is president has given no such commitment.
Agreed. I wonder if we will see the SNP trying to get away with publishing a manifesto a week or two before the election, like they did a couple of years back. Was that just last year? Was that just 2019 that they done that? A manifesto was published about a week before the general.
Yeah,
I think there'll be an awful lot of activists won't go out on the streets. Well, we're not going to be in the streets, but they won't be enthused unless that is given, that commitment, something like that commitment is given.
Something to ponder as we go into our cocoons to hide away for the rest of the day until such time as we are allowed out for our daily walk tomorrow.
Well, if you had your latest posting, I just got it, I think it's just yesterday, from the SNP. Ben's been putting out, they've been posting them. The posties delivering them all, but you should everyone will get an individual, and it's got this wee poster, and it says, if you feel like it, use the other side and put it in your window. That's stolen Labour's idea.
Yeah, but Ben's one of the good guys so far, mate. He's done a pretty decent job. And let's be honest, this area has a history of decent MPs and MSPs, and I think Ben stepped up to the plate pretty well so far.
I think we can safely say we are not ashamed of our Labour representatives.
Well, I've tried a couple of times to get him to come to interview. I interviewed Deirdre a few times, and who's the leader of the council? Remind me here.
Adam McVeigh.
Adam, I've interviewed him round here, around the table. Ben, you're still got an outstanding invitation for an interview.
Is Ben a minister at the moment, a junior minister?
Yes, he's picked up a nice.
Promoted a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, he has got a nice job. He's a junior minister in charge of the environment. I mean, who wouldn't want that job?
Okay. Right, we're running out of time, folks. So thanks for being with me, Stuart Lockhead.
Cheerio.
Charlie, also known as Phil Attridge, and Jimmy Hutton, who's
Cheerio, folks.
Who's not forgotten how to salute.
So long, folks.
Since his days in the forces. So we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for listening.